My name is Ada Sagai, and I'm going to be talking about Emery-Dreifuss muscular dystrophy. I've included a table of contents. I'll first be discussing introduction, then moving on to molecules affected, then the cellular component affected, symptoms, diagnosis, treatment, and statistics. So for introduction, EDMD is a rare and inherited muscular disease, also referred to as myopathy. It's also a genetic neuromuscular disorder that causes progressive weakness and degeneration in the skeletal muscle of the body. There are three inheritance patterns of this disorder: X-linked, autosomal dominant, and autosomal recessive. X-linked only affects boys, and their mother is a carrier passing down the X chromosome to them, causing them to be affected and have this disorder. For autosomal dominant, that involves one parent passing down the trait to their child, but girls can be affected by this too, not just boys. And for autosomal recessive, both parents are passing down a trait to their child. The disorder is named after two physicians named Alan Emery and Fritz Dreyfuss from the 1960s due to them working on a case of muscular dystrophy with a family from Virginia. I've included an image from the Rare Disease Review from 2015, and it's just highlighting the parts of the body that this disorder affects. It causes limbs in the shoulder, basically the shoulder area, and then the legs to be affected, and then the heart is affected as well due to this disorder causing heart effects and heart defects such as irregular heartbeat. For the molecule affected, there are proteins that are within the nuclear envelope that are affected called amarin and LMNA encoding A-type proteins. And in the image on the right, you can see the proteins within the nucleus that is found inside the cell of a muscle cell. Lamin A is right here as well as amarin, and these other components are involved too, but the most crucial parts are lamin A and amarin. So these both are intermediate proteins that polymerize to form the nuclear lamina. For the cellular component affected, it's the nuclear envelope. So the nuclear envelope is located between the nucleus and the cytoplasm. As you can see here on the left, this image is from science.org, and amarin's included right here. It's the blue component in this image. Mutations in the proteins result in poor gene regulation and lead to protein misfolding and destabilization. For symptoms, this disorder includes many symptoms. The first is spinal rigidity, and this is a painful thing that patients with MD have to go through. This makes their spinal cord, basically it's not straight, it's crooked. They have reduced ability to move, and it also affects their neck because it's attached to their spinal cord. There's also muscle weakness because this disorder results in the deterioration of muscle. This makes people with Emery-Dreifuss muscular dystrophy not able to move their arms a lot, and they have weak muscles. Another known common effect is heart effects, also referred to as cardiomyopathy. I've included an image on the right, and this one's displaying a normal heart, and the one on the right is dilated cardiomyopathy. And if you compare the two, the one with cardiomyopathy, this is an enlarged heart, and it's not supposed to be this big. Early development of muscle contractions in the Achilles tendons, elbows, spine, and cervical muscles. So basically, these contractions happen throughout the body and they're very painful. This is when the muscles contract involuntarily, and it can last up to a couple minutes, and you can't do anything unless you just have to wait until the muscles relax and continue function normally. For diagnosis, the most common form of diagnosis is just to go to the doctor and get a physical exam where they observe you and determine whether or not you have muscular dystrophy. Or you can either get a blood test, genetic test, or an electrical test. The blood test is the most common method and the most sought out after method. You just go in and get a syringe inserted into your vein and get your blood withdrawn so they can test your blood. Or you can get a muscle biopsy. This method's an extreme method of going about it. It requires an incision where they cut into a piece of your body, typically usually around your arm, and they remove a piece of your muscle to basically do tests on it and observation to test the muscle piece. And for MRI tests, this is when a patient is inserted into a big machine where they get scans done of their brain, of their body, so doctors can view their muscle damage patterns. Or an electrocardiogram is done to detect any heart effects or heart defects in the body. For treatment, this disorder has no cure, so the only solution patients who have EDMD have is to adapt and adjust to this disorder, because once you have it, it'll remain with you for the rest of your life. Patients with cardiomyopathy can either have a pacemaker or an implantable cardioverter defibrillator, also known as an ICD, inserted into their chest and their heart cavity to prevent heart failure. Physiotherapy is another option to help those who have EDMD work through it by working with a licensed professional physiotherapist who help patients exercise to increase their muscle strength and flexibility. Assistive devices are used as well as equipment to prevent leg deformities. So this is either an ankle or a foot brace, which is placed on the patient's feet to keep their ankle and feet straight, because their limbs tend to be deformed or they're crooked. So this makes sure that their ankle and feet are pointed in a straight position and it isn't pointed outward. And another common equipment that is used is a wheelchair, because people with EDMD cannot walk. They're not mobile much, so they have to use a wheelchair in order to get out and go to public places. And this is a means of transportation for them. A communication device is also used. Typically, it's like a keyboard and the computer screen attached to their wheelchair, which they type on. So this one can help with those who can't speak due to their disorder. This gives them a voice to communicate to others. Medication is also used for those who have cardiomyopathy, and they either take blood thinners or angiotensin converting enzyme inhibitors. For statistics, only 1 in 100,000 people globally are affected by this disorder and have been confirmed diagnosed with Emery-Dreifuss muscular dystrophy, but fewer than 5,000 people have this disorder, meaning it's not common and it's a rare disorder that only affects a few. Their patients only tend to live until their 20s and 30s because this disorder causes their muscles to deteriorate at a rapid fashion, and there's no cure to stop it or reverse it, so they only live into a quarter of their life before they pass away, so they don't have the option to grow older until they're of old age. And for the ethnic disparities within this demographic, there wasn't enough data and research done on this disorder, so it's currently unknown how many people have it in each racial and ethnic group. And these are my references. Thank you.